Welcome to the SDR DiscoCall vidcast and podcast, a show designed for brand new sales reps working in the world of tech sales. I'm your host, Neil Buyan, and I'm going to be taking you on a journey on the SDR DiscoCall vidcast and podcast. Did you know that you can watch this show live with the guests on YouTube? This show is available on YouTube at happyselling.io. Hello, fans, subscribers, watchers of the SDR DiscoCall show. Here's your boy, Neil Buyan, your host with the most. If you're stumbling across this show for the very first time, what is it all about? So we live in the world of sales, and there's a function called sales development, where people are prospecting, reaching out to contacts, and helping them find an interest within a software company to then provide their services. And what I love to do is find really cool and interesting people in the world of tech sales as well, and invite them onto the show to give you some best practices, some experiences. And what's really key with this show is knowing people's stories. Where do they come from? What have they seen? To give you an insight as to what this world's all about. If you're listening to this on your local podcast platform, please make sure that you give us a rating and share this episode with anybody that you think could benefit from it. And equally, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, the algorithm would really love a like, comment, and subscribe down below because it helps the show get out there. So with this guest, this is somebody that I've had a lot of fun working with in recent years, and somebody that actually works within the same biz that I do. But when I first met this person, I realized he was a vet in the game. He's got years on me. But we got to meet in London a few weeks back, or actually a couple of months back, face to face finally, and I got to give him a hug and a handshake. And I've been really excited to bring him on board. So guest, without further ado, could you say, who are you? Where are you in the world? Where do you work? And what do they do, sir?
Okay, my name is Fred Copestake. And should we make it clear now? It's not chopstick, cupcake, soap flake, cheapskate or anything like that. I'm in Sherwood Forest. It sounds a bit sexier, doesn't it? Yeah, Robin Hood lab. Yep. And yeah, I'm a sales training consultant. So that's what I do.
Love it. Thank you. Well, Fred, welcome to the show and welcome on board. Been really excited to get you on board, sir. And with the business that you do, we're going to go into your journey in a little bit. But with Brindis, tell us a little bit about Brindis. What is Brindis all about, Fred?
So Brindis. So I'm the founder of Brindis. I set this up nearly 21 years ago. So yeah, I am a vet. I don't know how to take that, but when you said it, it's like totally true. So I can't even argue. And I actually set it up with this Spanish name because Brindis is Spanish for toast, as in cheers, chin chin. Not toast, bread toast. And I called it that because I had the opportunity to run the academy for Corona Extra, the Mexican beer. That was my chance to step out of working for a company as a full-time trainer and going into doing my own thing. So it's a sales training consultancy. That's why it's called Brindis. Don't really work in the world of drinks anymore. It tends to be across other areas. But yeah, that's what Brindis is in a nutshell.
I love that. Thank you, Lemma. And yeah, with vet in the game, it's something I do say it's a time of endearment that I give out to people that have really had, a great experience within sales, and you've got a hell of a lot of knowledge. And I've had the opportunity to pick your brain, so it's really cool to have you on the show. And what I also like to ask Fred is, for I guess outside of sales, what does Fred like to get up to? What are your passions, hobbies, and interests are?
Yeah, sports, I guess, is a big one for me. Rugby in particular, that's my thing. I'm a full-time Alakadu now. I watch.
Alakadu? What's that?
Alakadu, when it's somebody puts a blazer on and goes and watch rugby matches.
All right, I learned something.
Yeah, it's a technical term. But I did play, but I retired fairly early and refereed. Pretty decent level, actually. Had me traveling around the world doing gigs in Argentina, Dubai, Holland, Canada. So yeah, but rugby's my thing, really.
I love it. Well, thank you very much, sir. And we're going to get into something about Fred because he's got this really cool thing to do with orange hats, but I think we'll come to that shortly soon. But as a reminder for anybody that's watching this on our YouTube channel, what we like to do at this point is go to our guest's LinkedIn profile. So with Fred's LinkedIn and all of his information about Brindis will be within the show notes. So if you want to connect with him, pick his brain, reach out to him on any of the topics that we've discussed today, feel free to reach out. And I'd highly recommend following Fred out on LinkedIn. He's got a load of content he puts out. He's got his own podcast, which we'll speak about in a moment. But Fred, if we go like way back in the day, like when I say you're a vet in the game, you've been around the block. You've got a lot of really good experience. So, you've been a consultant. You've also been a client director, senior management consultant, associate lecturer, partner, and a coach, a really cool company called My Sales Coach. But obviously with Brindis yourself, you've been there for, like you said, the past 20 years running this business. But the question we'd like to begin with is, sir, how did Fred get into sales, and what's your story, Fred?
Well, I was 8 years old. That's when I started in the world of
We're
sales.
going way back. Come on, bring it.
Oh, we are going way back. I mean, so I've not put this one on LinkedIn. I probably should actually. And what it was there's a family business which was a builder's merchants, and we sold kitchen and bathrooms. And on Boxing Day every year, the day after Christmas, there was the sale. And when I was 8, I was allowed to go and help. I'm not sure how much help I was. But what they did is they said, right, okay, off you go, and you go into the tile store. Okay, right. You probably should know that the premises was a big old Victorian mill. So I suppose technically my first job was in a Victorian mill. So this is December, right? So it's a big stone building. It was stone cold. I'm in this tile store, stood there, people coming in, and I'm just talking to them and asking them, what they're trying to do, what they want the tiles for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, here's some over here, put in a box, off you go, buy them. So yeah, it was stone cold, and I was kind of doing this thing, but I was having such a laugh. This is brilliant. Yeah, I was also kitted out in this big orange polo shirt. I like orange, and it's one of those old warehouse coats, those big brown things.
Yeah.
But what was I doing? I was talking to people and helping them. That's sales.
Yeah.
Essentially, I mean, I didn't know it was then. I just thought, yeah, this is quite a good laugh. This got paid a little commission. Invested it wisely, sweeties, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of the start of, I suppose, the sales journey. I didn't know then, but with family business, it's always been sort of fairly commercial. Degree commerce and Spanish. It's always been front of mind that commercial type endeavor is what I do.
I love that. So like 8 years old in this Victorian mill, handling inbound leads in essence, right? People coming into the shop, you're asking them their requirements. And as you said, like this was a family business, and back then you didn't realize it was sales, but it was. But what was going through the mind of a young 8-year-old, like speaking to potentially adults or people, getting a bit of cash? What was that kind of buzz for you, like at 8 years old, Fred?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something that's never really been a problem. I've sort of quite happily speak to people. It wasn't that I was kind of scared of doing it. It was just that, yeah, these people are coming in and I'm there to speak to them, sort of thing. I guess from upbringing, yeah, sort of talking to adults and all that kind of thing. It was never as a question of sort of be seen and not heard and all that sort of stuff. It was, you've got something to say, and parents brought me up to be confident to talk to people. And probably to be interested in them, actually. If I look back and I'm really forensic about it, they did probably train me to be curious and to want to learn stuff and to kind of just get more knowledgeable, better at what I was doing.
I love that. You're right, because I think instilling that confidence, so like with SDRs, a lot of them may start off, the first sales job, and they're tasked to cold call people, speak to people. And I've met a lot of SDRs who are like, but they're strangers. I don't know what they're going to think about me. But that thing as a kid, talking to those adults, taking those orders, asking them questions, it builds the confidence. So I think it's just speak to people is how you build your confidence. Would you agree?
Yeah, I guess it was. And look, it was a different time back then. And I could think about, sort of stuff that I'd probably done, which just made that kind of thing easier for me. We used to go on holiday to Spain every year because my grandparents lived in Spain. And so, when I was about 6, they'd send me across the road to the bar. This is my dad and my granddad who would be fishing off the harbour wall to go and buy them beers. So I'd be walking off on my own with money to go and order drinks in a foreign language. Yeah, and I soon worked out that if you learn stuff, then you can do well out of it because they'd be like, "Where's the change?" "Oh yeah, I forgot to give it you." "And what's that?" "Oh, it's a bottle of Coke and a bag of crisps." Thought I'd help myself to that, So, but I guess that confidence thing and sort of being encouraged to go and do things which I'm going to say out your comfort zone, but I'm not sure you do have a comfort zone when you're that young. You just get used to doing stuff that's kind of a bit more expansive. So yeah.
100%. I think with kids, what they tend to have is they don't have a fear until they learn fears later on in life. So it's just speaking to people, meeting people for who they are, and being curious, and getting a bottle of Coke and a bag of crisps as well with a change, and
Let it give you the change. I mean, all of them. Yeah, I've brushed up on the ethics more recently.
So if we go fast forward a little bit more, like, young Fred working within the family business, when did it come into, a bit of a more mature Fred working in an established company and then tasting sales there? So I'm looking at IMI Norgren on your LinkedIn. What's the story there? When did Fred become official in this biz?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd done various holiday jobs. A lot of those were probably more manual, working brick factory and helping deliver building materials and stuff like this. But I'm a Norgren. Yeah, that was the first job where I kind of lucked out on that one. Again, you make your own luck. But I bumped into a guy at rugby club who we were chatting, and he's like, "What are you doing?" So I'm about to leave uni. Well, what are you going to do? I said, "Oh, well, got a degree in commerce and Spanish, so something to do with that." Career plan, it hadn't been so hot.
Yeah.
And then that was it, Carry on talking about the rugby match or whatever. Got a phone call 2 days later. The guy got in touch with my dad and said, "Go talk to your son. We've got something that he would be ideal for. We're launching a product in Spain, and we need someone who can speak Spanish and can go and can represent us there and doing this sort of thing." So, people love that hard luck story, and my first job in sales was really tough. I'd be absolutely lying if I said it was. I was sat on a flight to Spain in business class 2 weeks after starting my role,
Bloody hell.
Yeah, but again, you think about it, then that's tough because then you're going, you work in foreign language, different culture. But again, I'm comfortable in those because of the visits, because I'd learnt the stuff, and then doing that role. So that's where I started with Norgren in that sales role. It was going to be part of a contract, 6 months. I ended up staying there longer, so they wanted me to do other things, and I moved between sales and marketing and business development. Yeah. So again, you look back at it and you go, "Fred, that's so damn lucky." You consider all the conversations we're having now, silos, and we need to integrate more than ever. It's kind of, I kind of covered those ones early doors.
Yeah. I love
If I'd have actually had plotted my career, it would have been quite a good plan. And I can't take any responsibility for the fact that it felt like that.
I love that as well, because I think, having that person call your dad saying, "We want to speak to your son. There's this position within this company." And as you mentioned, it was only supposed to be like a short contract, but you spent quite a few years there learning different things. But I'm curious to know, Fred, what was on that younger Fred, like you're on the plane on business class, flying out somewhere to do this new job. What was going through your head? Like, what was Fred thinking?
Well, it was funny because I took my last uni exam on the Friday, and I started work on the Monday. So my mates at uni thought this was hilarious. Yeah, because I was missing out on all the partying and stuff. So then 2 weeks later, I'm off to Spain to go I forgot what was going through my mind is, really, I mean, if I'm brutally honest. And then actually, how does one behave in this environment? What do I need to do to fit in? So yeah, I can speak the language. I understand some theory around marketing, really, probably more than sales. But how do I quickly fit in to this to do stuff in the right way? Back then, I guess uni was quite theoretical. Now, I know a bit more about employability and stuff, and people are set up to be hitting the ground running and be really useful in a work environment. So I was just trying to kind of find a fun place there, and kind of also thinking, this is forever now, which is also quite a sobering thought.
Yeah. And I think like a key thing that you said there is like you're in this business now, like you've come out of university where you've had some theory. Now it's practical time, day-to-day actual work. But that key word that you said there was like fitting in, figuring out how you fit in. And I think with a lot of salespeople, either going into a new job or a new company, they try to find their place. So how did you figure out the work thread? Like, how did that come to fruition?
Yeah, again, we're back. I mean, I think we'll probably use this word a lot, and I'm pleased we are. Which is curious. It's be curious. It's be observant. It's work out how are people doing stuff. And yeah, look, I probably should have been MD in my own head because I knew so much because I just come out of uni.
Yeah.
But once I got over that and kind of really started to figure this is how people do stuff around here, to actually go with the flow a little bit, not try and disrupt, not try and change everything, but work out that and just be kind of very observant and why are people doing that? You know, what's going on there? What's happening? You know, I think, yeah, doing a lot of that.
I agree. I think 100% being curious, watching how people work, why do they do the things that they do, why do they say it in that way, and building out your business acumen. Because I can remember joining my first tech or sales job, I was curious, but I was also like, I have no idea what the hell everybody's doing or why they're doing what they do. But I think it's that ability to ask, why do you do that? And why do you position it that way? And I always remember that I used to have like a little notebook because I saw everybody had a notebook in sales. Everyone had a pen and a notebook and they're always forever taking notes. So I'm like, what are they taking notes of? But what I used to do was in the back of my book, if I ever heard a word or a term that I'd never heard before, I used to write it down. So if we was in a discovery call or a face-to-face meeting with one of my AEs, and I'd always ask them at the end of the week, I'd be like Brendan or Gareth or Turlock, who I was working with, like, why did you say that? And what's the point of that? But I was curious to know, like, what kind of tips would you give to people that may feel a little bit unnerved coming into something new where they're curious, but they don't want to look like the person that doesn't know? What advice would you give to them?
Just ask questions. Absolutely ask questions. There's a clever quote, which I can't remember, which is like, was it ask a foolish question once and you're fool for a minute, but don't and you're fool forever or something like that?
Okay, yeah.
But actually, you're not even a fool for a minute, you know? And if somebody thinks you are or kind of looks down on you or is dismissive about you asking something to try to learn and be better, well, you've learned something there. That they're not somebody for you.
Yeah.
So there you go. You've actually won anyway. Probably not what you were trying to win, but you figured out this person ain't someone you need to be going to. People who will be helpful because they probably remember the same scenario.
Yeah.
You know, people will be generous. You know, if you ask people and you ask people's opinions, people love sharing an opinion.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, the advice would be, you know, just go for it. Don't be worried about it.
I love
The
that.
very worst you're going to find out is that somebody is an idiot.
Yeah. And you're right, because I think, like being a former manager, I usually used to say, like, there is no such thing as a stupid question. It's stupid if you don't ask. And if you sit there pretending to know what you think you know. Rightfully so, asking people for help, I've learned people love help. To your point, people always have an opinion on something. And if you position it to someone like, so Fred, like, why do you do it that way? Or like, what's your experience in this? Or, you know, what was it like for you first time around? People love to teach. People love to share their opinion. And that's another way you can build a relationship with people. But there are some people that don't like to be asked the questions like, oh, you should already know. And yeah, I would recommend kind of steering away from those sort of people.
Well, then you found out who they are. Great.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Yeah. So, the other bit I'd love to know, so again, we're both sales trainers and we live that life. And obviously with Brindis, like running it for the past 20 years, like I look up to people such as you because you've been doing the thing that I'm doing a hell of a lot longer. But I know personally as well, Fred, that it's not just one thing which makes you wake up in the morning saying, right, I'm going to just go run this company and this happens. I found personally there's variables of things that happen in your life then that come to a boiling point where you're like, right, this is what I'm doing. So I'd love to know, like, what were those experiences and variables that then helped you to say, I am the founder of Brindis? How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, Brindis has probably been through 3 iterations. We're coming in our 3rd life, if you like. So yeah, I don't know, 20 years in it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the old expression, isn't there? Well, for 1 year, 20 times. You say you're still a novice, actually. It's not quite that, but there was the Corona days, if you like, where that was my opportunity to set it up. Was I running a business? Was I funding a lifestyle? Or not even funding a lifestyle because they paid for most stuff. And I was flying around the world training people how to sell beer. If I could have made a job up for myself, it was that.
I love
you know. And when I left my old company, they said, "Oh, are they going to employ you?" And I'm like, "Well, no, actually, because of the setup, they prefer to use me as a consultant." And they said, "Well, how much of your time?" I said, "Oh, about 80% of my time." They said, "What are you doing with the 20?" And I'm like, "I don't know." They said, "Well, can you still work for us then?" So I left, but I didn't leave and carried on. So
Ah.
absolutely, again, I was probably spoiled. No, actually, probably I was, because life was very, very easy. Then we kind of hit the tough times. So we went 2009 recession, or 2007, 2008, 2009, and that company was going through changes. They didn't need as much of the training from the Corona Academy we'd set up, because they were partnering with companies that got their own departments, because they were bigger. There were some of the major brewers. And whilst Fred was flying around the world and doing all this sort of stuff,
Yeah.
line management was terrible. Well, non-existent. I just didn't happen. So suddenly I'm like, oh, I haven't got work here. I haven't got work here. Life was tough. Went into kind of a different phase of Brindis life, which was probably more survive than thrive. And then if we go to 2020, again, I'd say we'd hit we've gone into a different mode. And that's not because of pandemic. That was going to happen anyway. Pandemic probably made the changes easier in some ways, because we had to change. Everyone had to change.
Yeah.
And that's when I'd started like write first book and restructure the way in which I train stuff, how I want to do stuff, who I want to work with, and be very much more deliberate in things. So yeah, there's sort of phases, a bit like phases in a career, I guess.
Yeah,
You might go from SDR to AE to manager, or maybe go off to CS, customer success or something. That's sort of what I've done, but of myself, if you like.
And there's many a thing within that I can relate to, like the different iterations of your biz. Because I think I laugh at it, but when I started Happy Selling, it was completely different to kind of what I'm doing today. And dealing with economic things, dealing with pandemics, and all of that, it really does force you and challenge you to kind of pivot to be current and stay alive. And to your point, surviving. There's many points where I'm just like, yeah, I'm still here somehow, and I've figured something out. But I think in the early days, and I've spoken to a few people that recently started their own biz in sales training or coaching. And I remember in the early days, I was everything for everyone. I had every type of service because I didn't really know what I was trying to do. All I knew was my niche is SDRs. That's the thing that I'm really good at, and the crowd that I love working with. But it wasn't just pure sales training. It was kind of like being a manager for hire. And I didn't really know it back then. It's because I was doing all the things I'd learned as a manager and as a rep. So rather than just pure prospecting training, it was, setting up cadences, how to do one-to-ones, how to create a playbook. And I was being pulled left, right, and center. And there was many a time where I just thought, this is stressful and I just want to throw the towel in. But there was something within me that kept saying, this is building to something. I don't know what. But were there any moments of like you said, you're flying around, you're doing all these cool things, but like, did you ever stop yourself and think, what the hell am I doing? And did you question yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was just pre 2020. So I wouldn't be able to say the exact time, but let's say a couple of years before, where, like you, the more you do it, the more you can do.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the stuff that I have trained in, there's a massive list. And that's what the old Brindis website was. It was like, oh, we can do training in basic sales, medium sales, advanced sales, negotiation, presentation. We can do key account management. We can do presentation skills. We could NLP and selling. Oh, look at me, how clever I am. We can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's, well, can you go and do time management? Yeah, but you can do time management for this bank. Well, they're not salespeople. Yeah, but it's okay. Yeah, we'll do that. So I'm doing tons and tons of these different things, and it's cool. But then it's like, it's not very fulfilling. I'm just sort of doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff. And sometimes there were people that didn't really want to be there either. The training of hostages.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm doing a subject that I'm not really passionate about with people who don't really care about it, somewhere I don't really want to be. Apart from that, I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
And it's wicked. I think there might have been a moment when I realized that, and I thought, hang on a minute, how much of that have I been doing? Right. Okay. Let's drill down. Let's go. Who really do you want to work with? Who are you best with? I was kind of rewriting some training programs, because I was doing some stuff for other people as well. And it's like, hang on a minute, I'm rewriting your stuff. Why don't I just write it properly. Book, reformat training, off we go. So yeah, there are these sort of wake up calls, if you like, but I'm not sure I was brilliant at picking them up. I'm better, a bit better now, but yeah.
And I think it's important to try, because for me, it was, right, this is what Neil delivers in terms of training. And then they would ask, can you do this? I'm like, I can, yes. But in my head, I'm like, I don't really want to do that because it feels like I'm being an employee again. And I'm trying to run my own biz and be a solopreneur. But the other way that I used to look at it was, every time I rack up doing these little side projects or, in betweens of my regular training, I was like, maybe this is what builds my curriculum, or it helps me understand what do I do and what I don't focus. So I remember, because my training is predominantly prospecting training, and lots of heads of sales would say, do you mind the account execs joining? And back in the day, I'd be like, yeah, the more the merrier. So if it's a bigger size, there's more cash for me, like on the invoice. But then I ran into things such as with the SDRs, obviously they're relatively new to the role. And the account executives and the closers had probably been in sales longer. So every time I was running a training session, they'd constantly be like, well, I wouldn't do it that way. Or in my experience, this wouldn't happen. And they'd always, I can remember watching training videos back that I recorded using my studio. And, it would completely sway the training, because then it became a debate on the topic of sales. And I just kind of came to the conclusion of learning to say, yeah, maybe you're right. This is how I've done it, but how would you take what Neil's doing and then put it into your own world? And I was like, they would then talk, and then we would agree, okay, that's cool, we can now move on to the next topic. But I'd come out of the session and said, no, I wouldn't have closers in there because of their experience, because they've probably learned something and they're maybe not stuck in that ways, but that's how they're going to do it. But with the SGR, this is all new to them. So, we can kind of set the foundations, and that's my ICP. But there has been times over the years where I'm like, yeah, bring them on if they want help with prospecting, but they need to know we have this main audience, this is who we're training for, and we don't want to stumble them or, mix their minds up with what we're delivering. So not a case of don't say anything, but bear in mind, this is for the newer audience. And if you've got experience, great, bring it in, but let's try to stick to the plan. But did you have any crazy requests with your training that you just thought, no, that's completely left field, that's not what I do?
I probably didn't.
Yeah.
Because they weren't that crazy, because I was doing all sorts of stuff at the time.
Yeah.
I guess probably conflict management. I did some stuff on that in the Middle East, ironically. So that was like more, you're not total subject matter expert. You know enough, and actually you know enough about working in that part of the world, you'll do a better job. And that's when you start saying, I'm drifting so far away from what I really like doing. And this was becoming a bit more, and it was for other people. I'm like, oh, no, stop. Well, what you say though about building your mountain of value and kind of having to do some of the stuff, doing the reps to get to the point that actually I am stood on that. And though I will tend to talk about this piece, I can go off to these pieces because I might need to in the training.
Yeah.
But also you're making the better decision to say, right, this is what I do. I work with SDRs, or I deal in collaborative selling.
Yeah.
And so then you actually sell it better. The irony here in that, that you sort of do a sales training job, but you actually lose sight of applying the stuff to yourself. It's like the coupler's kid's shoes, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then you go back and you go, hang on a minute, what's the pain that the people I want to serve have? What's the prize? And what's the bridge to get them from there to there? Now that is the stuff that we double down on. We build the thing around it. We communicate about it, and that is what we do. And then we become more magnetic. But that's selling.
Yeah.
Or marketing, or both.
Yeah, you're right. I think narrowing down to your niche, or, the things you enjoy doing. Because I think, like with one of my mentors that used to get me my sales training projects, when the pandemic did kick in, and in essence, I had to let go of my only client at that time, my mentor, David, turned around and I said to him, I need another project, for money and everything like that. But he said, I'm not going to give you anything. And I was just like, why not? I need the money, dude. I've got to feed my kid. And he just said, do you have enough money to at least make it the next 3 or 4 months without a project? And I said, yeah, I do. Because the cool thing was, when we went into the pandemic, everything was remote. So there were no overheads. It was just an internet connection, a Zoom, and fire it up. And I said, yeah, I do. And he says, I think you need to have a break because I see you doing this happy selling thing, but I don't think you're doing what you want to do. I think you're doing what's being asked of you so that you can pay a bill, which is, I respect. But I think you really need to have a break and step back and ask yourself the honest question, what is happy selling? And that was one of the best exercises I did, which helped me define my ICP. So I kind of said to David, right, so the ICP for happy selling is they're a tech company, at least Series A, so they've got some cash in the bank. They are they have the right tech stack in place to do prospecting with all the right tools. They've got a team of at least 5 to 8 SDRs, and they have an SDR manager that's really passionate about training and coaching. And it has to be within tech sales because I kept being brought into some things with manufacturing. Pharmaceutical people were asking for my help and prospecting, and I was like, nah, it's tech companies, startups with this. And then I learned to say no to projects. I learned when I was a good fit, and I could openly say in a discovery call when I had an inbound lead, I'm not your guy, but there is this other person that I would recommend. But yeah, I agree. It takes a while to figure out who is your audience and what you do. What do you think?
Well, I was thinking that, and then the question to you, well, add on to it, I know you though,
Yeah.
was did you also model yourself into that? So there's all very well, yeah, who's your target audience? Who do you want to serve? But you've got to serve yourself.
Yeah.
And were you very conscious of that when you were doing it? Or has that taken a couple of iterations? Because then I'll show what happened to me.
Okay. I think I understand the question, but when you say model myself to my ICP, what do you mean? As in like I'm doing
Well,
what I'm training or?
So what happened to me was that, so 2020, books out. This is the way we're going to structure the training. This is how it's going to happen. I want to go virtual. I mean, okay, that was a bit of a hand there.
Yeah.
And that's the way we're going to do stuff around here because we can be way more effective. We can chop it into little bits and we can add lots and lots of levels of support. And boom, boom, boom. Brilliant. Happy days. Awesome plan, Fred. Very good. And that's what I did. Stopped traveling. Now, we all stopped traveling, but I stopped traveling. That was going to be the plan. Now, bearing in mind till then, I'd worked in like 36 different countries. Yeah, it was okay, stop. And I was saying no to stuff. And then once, a couple of years ago, the beginning of this year, a friend came around and said, Fred, can you do a job in Spain? Can you do a job in Spain? I'm like, no, I don't travel anymore. Don't worry about it. Not me. Come on. Go on then. I got there. I loved it. And I came back and I was full of energy. And then a couple of weeks later, I went to Germany to do something else. I came back and I was even more full of energy. And a friend said to me, because you loved that, didn't you? I said, yeah, you're back to old you. I went, what? So the perfect model for business was all great, except I hadn't really taken myself into consideration as a key part of the energy, of the success, of the stuff you're going to bring to it. I was misaligned on my values. I was just like, now I'm moving that back around, and this is work in progress as we speak. To say, actually, no, the way I do stuff is that yes, I will get back on planes. I will go and visit countries to run longer sessions because it's the right thing to do for me and for them. So yeah, that's what I meant by that.
So I get it now, and I think the way that I positioned happy selling back then was we were the experts, and I don't really use that word anymore, but we were the experts in remote sales training. That's the way that I positioned it. And the reason that I positioned it was most SDRs would be remote with their prospects, whether it was a Zoom or if it was a call, it was never like in person. So what I was trying to emulate was this is an online experience that I'm giving to you, and this is a type of experience you can give to your prospects. But I think the trap that I kept falling into, and this kind of relates back to traveling again, because I did miss it. And when we were allowed to fly off and go to places, I realized how much connection I missed with the people that I was training. Because the reality was, as soon as you end the Zoom at the end of a 2-hour training session, and the Zoom closes, you have no idea, did they just take on board what they want? Did they have any other questions? Or did they think they were just chatting a bunch of BS and this is all I'm just here as hostages? You would have no sort of insight. So slowly but surely, a couple of more projects where I was then saying, is this a remote training course that you want to do? Or is there any elements of face-to-face that you want? And most people would want face-to-face. But then I had to figure out, okay, travel factors, setup time, Is this something I'm going to stay out there for a week whilst we're doing this, or is it going to be like ad hoc and changing it all around? And then it got to the point of, I love doing both. I prefer remote because I'm in my home comforts. I've got my studio. I know all the tricks to click all the buttons. And face to face, you always have this risk of, does the HDMI cable work? Am I going to be able to present my laptop? And I try to reduce any sort of things going wrong because I really learned how to do an online experience like we do with this podcast. This is all online, right?
Mm.
But yeah, I think going back to your question, did I model myself? I tried to emulate to show them what they could be for their prospects, even on a remote setting.
Yeah. And I think almost like the learning point, hopefully coming out of this, is that you might have this idea of this is what you want to do. But actually, if it isn't really you, if you don't fit, if you're misaligned, it could be all your mates that say, hey, yeah, do this job. It's brilliant. You'll love it. Actually, you don't. It's not you. It doesn't fit. To try to almost bang the square peg into the round hole, it's going to get increasingly more painful. Listen to that early will be the advice I'd give to people. It's like, I was fighting this. No, this is the way because I've decided and I'm right because I'm always like, yeah. But I was feeling it until suddenly it was just so bloody obvious. Even mates are calling you that. You are different because of this. So yeah, just don't do something just because it sounds like it's a great idea and you think it's you. Make sure it really is. That's what I'd kind of, from our little chat there, I would highlight to people who might be listening in.
Yeah. 100%.
Actually, you said something there where I do feel misaligned. I'm not quite doing
You're
what
right.
I probably should.
I think like I've got lots of memories where Neil, either through a mentor or through a friend of a friend, me introducing me to a company, I was always positioned as Neil is the SDR guy to help your SDRs. And I would go into that call or that, meeting thinking, right, I want to come and deliver a 7-week course for the SDRs. I want to show them everything that I can do. And normally at that point, what they were looking for, like the missing gap that they had a lot of the time, was they either had an SDR manager that was an IC, moved into management, was really successful as a top performer, but didn't know how to, explain to a team about training, about prospecting. So they had that bit. Or they had the missing bit where they didn't have the SDR manager and they were reporting to the VP of sales. And that person didn't have time to train and coach, these newbies coming into their business. But it always ended up in this conversation like, yeah, we like the training thing we do, but could we do this on a longer term basis? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like maybe come in a couple of days a week, sit down with the SDRs, do one-to-ones with them. And I just sit there and thinking, this sounds like a job and this sounds like a manager job. And I'm not that. And I used to push back a hell of a lot. But then I would always get convinced that maybe this is the thing that I should be doing. I get to test my methodology. I can actually show them and get validated that this stuff actually works. And I'd somehow get into like a 3 or 6 month or even 12-month contract with, in essence, being their manager. And they'd be like, I'd get to the end of the weekend and my mates would be like saying, yes, how's the happy selling, being a founder? How's that life? I said, mate, I feel like a boss and I feel like a manager. And I'm doing all the shit that I don't like doing, but I need the money, But I'm not going to say the name of the company, but I did my last manager job a few years back and I just said, never again. Like I love coaching, I love training, but it drains the energy of actually being the manager, and that's why I don't do it anymore. And some people always say, yeah, but Neil, if happy selling ended tomorrow, you could go out and get a manager's job. I said, I hope to God that never happens because I don't enjoy doing it. But yeah, being clear on your why, but there are times that your arms can be bent and twisted and you could go in a different direction, but it's all experience, right?
Yeah, it is. Clear who you are, clear what you're trying to do, making decisions within that. Yeah, of course, there's going to be things that isn't always exactly what you want to do, but when you kind of hang on, this is all what I'm not.
Yeah.
Instead. Still.
All right. So to take the path on a little bit of a different point, because there's a few topics I want to cover today with yourself, Fred, which is, so you've got Brindis going on. Tell me a little bit about how you got into the world of coaching, where we are together and what we're doing there. Also talk to me a little bit more about orange hat thinking. And within all of that, I know this is a tall order, but I'd love to know from your point of view, how the world of sales is changing from what you used to do, what you're seeing now and what you're experiencing. So how did Fred get into the line of coaching? What's that for you? Where does orange hat thinking come into this? And what changes have you seen, sir?
Interesting ones. I've I suppose I've always had a coach in some way, shape, or form, though it probably wasn't called that. Certainly in the first job, there was someone who's kind of looking after me. Let's call it that. Probably didn't even call it coaching. As I was at the same time going up in the field refereeing, I had a coach. It was called a coach, and it was somebody who coached me. Didn't sort of assess me or advise me. That was a different job. They were a coach, so I'd had that. When I went to work full time for a training company, we'll call it training company, personal development company. Yes, I was training, but there would also be coaching assignments. And again, we were very clear on what the difference is. Training, you're putting in; coaching, you're pulling out, telling, asking. And so I was receiving coaching, but I was also doing it because I was in that world where that was something that we did. So I've been doing it quite a long time and I sort of learned how to do it. You know, the basics, understanding grow, feedback, etc., going through NLP qualifications, doing things which have just got me better at doing that. To be coached as much as to be a coach. So yeah, that's been something that's been around for a bit. And then I met the guys from my sales coach, and they're like, "Oh, do coaching?" Yeah, I do. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, and you tend to work in this particular area. You're probably a bit more tactical. Some of my guys and offer a different dimension.
Yeah.
Do you want to come on board? And it's like, yeah, one of the best decisions I've made. And I'm not just saying that.
Yeah.
Don't have to. I'm saying it because I want to. That's the coaching bit. The orange hat.
Yes.
Again, by being around a bit and kind of having a curiosity and wanting to learn stuff, and certainly working for a training company, I went on tons of training courses. Brilliant. Yeah, I wasn't delivering. I'd probably go on a course. Yeah, and I came across this concept of 6 thinking hats.
Okay.
Where it's Edward de Bono, 6 thinking hats. And in a nutshell, what he says is that when we think, we tend to get stuck in a rut of our way of thinking. And so we sometimes struggle to break out of that and we miss some options. We don't think as well as we could. And so he invented this model of these 6 thinking hats. So he put a different hat on, either physically or metaphorically, where depending what hat you're wearing, you're thinking in a different way. So you might have your blue hat, which is all about process. It's managing the process of thinking. So that might be the person who's running a group of people. And particularly groups of people, because you've been in those discussions where you've got somebody who's saying something positive and somebody's being negative and somebody's being creative. And what we're trying to do is harness that so we're all thinking in the same direction.
Yeah.
We will cover all perspectives, but we're going to save time and increase effort in these areas. So white hat, put that on, data. What do we know? What do we know we don't know? What do we need to know? Etc. Brilliant. Okay, good. Right. So in that case, let's put a green hat on. And you can go any order. I tend to do it like this. Green hat. Let's be creative. Let's go with really creative ways of solving the problem that we're trying to solve. Non-judgmental, all that good stuff. Excellent. Right. Then we might go to the yellow hat. Yellow is positivity. Why is what we've said such a good idea? Why are we brilliant? How is it going to work? Why is it so fantastic? And someone will say, yeah, but you go, stop. No. We're yellow hat thinking. We're staying positive. Right. Now we can go and put the black hat on, which is negative. Yeah. Devil's advocate. What if? You try and pick it apart. You do it deliberately because that's going to make it stronger. And then we've got the red hat, which is the emotional response. How do we actually feel about that? It's all very well that so you can go around these different hats, doing these different styles of thinking, keeps all on track, come out with a better solution. So I'd learned this stuff ages ago. And again, it's one of these things. I think I was in training one day. Yeah, I was in training one day, and it's one of these things that just cropped up and I just ad-libbed. Oh, right. Okay. Well, you share this model, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is really cool. Yeah. Salespeople are sense makers, right? So understanding how to help people think is pretty cool. That's why I threw it in. And that was kind of in my head from the day before. And I was looking at a LinkedIn post and I didn't really know what to put. I looked across my office and there's an orange hat on the side.
Yeah.
So I just put the orange hat on, took a selfie. As your classic, I don't really know what to do on LinkedIn. Take a selfie, make some stuff up. Orange hat. Orange hat. It's the hat De Bono never spoke about. It's applied sales thinking. I just wrote some nonsense about this.
Yeah.
I got a few responding. Oh, that's quite funny. Da, 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 da. Next week, why don't I just go with the orange hat again? Right, it's been about 18 months. It's nearly 2 years where every Wednesday I'll drop an orange hat thinking post. And what I'm doing is I'm being very deliberate on going, let's go a little bit deeper on something in sales and provide something a bit more educational, but just have a picture of me with an orange hat on while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So it's what I call educate post. It's where you real value, this guy knows his stuff, put it out there. It's just a mechanism for my own discipline and kind of have a bit of a laugh doing it. So I'll just go and sit in weird places or do weird things wearing my orange hat. So yeah, that's the kind of the good solid background and the sort of legit reason for doing it. And it sort of amuses me as well.
Yeah, you got to love.
Maybe it amuses other people. I don't know. Couple of people seem to like it.
I love it when I see orange hat posts on LinkedIn. I always have to give it a like and a comment, and I do love it. And you know, we've spoken about this like on your podcast before around the personal branding, like being known for not so much a gimmick, but that thing about you and people can expect from you, right? And this is kind of what I want to meander into. Like, how have you seen the world of sales like changing around you? And I'll give a little bit of context to this. So I remember you and me, we met up in London a few months ago with the My Sales Coach team. And I was really happy that I was sitting on your table. And the way we kind of approached the conversation, I don't know what you think, is that we are like two sales guys that come from the same world, but we've been in two different time periods. But we were like hashing notes. You were asking me about content creation. You was asking me more about the world of SDRing. And again, if you ask somebody something, they're happy to teach. And then I was asking you about the orange hat thinking. But the difference that I saw, Fred, is like if I go back, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, a lot of sales runners didn't always used to talk to each other all the time. Or you were part of a collective of something else like the Sales Force for Good. And I always saw myself as an outsider, but here I had an opportunity to meet what I called a vet in the game. But we were on two different spectrums when it comes to the world of sales. So like, what are the differences you've seen and what are the cool things that you're happy to see? And what are the other things that make you go like, not too sure?
Yeah, I mean, what I actually did in the first book is I studied this stuff. I went back in time, looked at what was going on in the world of sales because I'm kind of a bit geeky like that and it's all interesting. But then I said, and what is relevant now? And are there any little tweaks that we need to make to? It's still relevant, but we've got a modern take on it. And so I kind of went back and so far, but I went back to 50s and kind of look what was going on then post-war. It's all about kind of regeneration, rebuilding. It's about efficiency. And that's what sales is about. And that's when sales process really started to get nailed down. Yeah, so having a good, repeatable, tried and tested way of doing the same stuff again and again and again. So you can start to predict an element of success. And absolutely, we want that. Now, whether it's processing a call, processing an account management, processing how you run your life, templates to do things, absolutely, yes, let's learn from that and let's take those and kind of use them in a modern way. Kind of moved on to the 60s and went, okay, 60s, it was more about psychology. So it's understanding people, how they think, thinking preferences, personality styles. So again, you say, absolutely, that's something that we bring into what we do today. We're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're going to make sure that, yeah, we're adapting to the person's style. What you didn't have in the 60s was stuff like Humantic or Crystal Nose and things that you can use to understand someone's style before you've even met them. It's like, oh, this is freaky, that. 70s moved into benefit selling. So, people don't buy the drill, they buy the hole. And that came back from them, Theodore Levitt. Yeah, so really understanding what's in it for me and kind of using that as a basic building block. So we need to understand that stuff. But there's better modern twists on this. But if you don't really understand that, again, you're going to struggle. You're going to talk about product, not problem. I think what good came out of the 80s in sales? Things like, close. It was a bit close, wasn't it? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, mate. It was good music. But from a sales point of view, it was very, very selfish, wasn't it? It was that manipulation, closing, all that sort of nonsense. Right, we have to get commitment. Sales does keep moving forward. But really, some of the techniques, they chuck away. Don't do it. People still think some of this stuff is clever. It's not. 90s, luckily though, came along, Neil Rackham, with consultative selling. That's the thing. So Spin was his take on this and kind of looking at actually what the best salespeople are doing. Well, it's not what they're trained, which is closing, asking questions to understand, need better, create the gaps so that people can understand that actually what they're doing now isn't as good as what they could be doing. And that's foundational. Now, really, we've all got to get a head around this stuff. That should be within, or in some way, shape or form, all sales training.
Yeah.
But that's, what, 30 odd years ago.
Yeah.
There's been other developments. So when we looked at kind of what's going on in the noughties, we were talking about value-based selling. So really understanding what value is, and the customer defines it. Then that's where a lot of people make a mistake. Yeah, I've got a colleague of mine who says value is a mystery. And I love this because that's something, we're like a detective. We've got to work out what it means to them, value in the eye of the beholder. For days. Moving into tens. So in the 10, the word I was using was sales stature. So I didn't have a better one, which is like, you've got to prove that you're the person that people should be talking to. And that, again, you're the go-to. You've got a good reputation. We'd probably say personal branding now. Though I'm not using that term anymore for salespeople. A lot of the guys I work with hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not Kardashian. I don't want that. Reputation enhancement.
Yeah.
Because you can use, stuff like LinkedIn, social media, things to position yourself that you know your stuff. A little bit like we're going to read someone's personality before we meet them. They're going to think, this person's going to give me value. I can tell before I meet them. The next iteration was into the 20s. So collaborative selling. So this is more thinking like a partner. Even if you're not, think like a partner, behave like a partner. You'll do the things which are more effective, sit alongside somebody to work stuff out together. So, and there's ways to do that. That's what I wrote first book about. We're kind of moving on to, because stuff is going faster and faster, the speed of change is picking up faster. Yeah. What I'm seeing now is that customers demanding a more ethical selling approach. Ethical selling is where we're heading, which is a way of capturing some of that good stuff and aiming for win-win-win. Customer wins, company wins, and your conscience wins because you're keeping your integrity in the way you do stuff. So that's the sort of the next iteration. And funny enough, that's the next book. So there you go. Potted history of sales, stuff that's going on, lots of good things. We could take that in another 14 hours of, well, what was the original and what are the little shifts to bring that up to speed, up to where we're operating now. And there's tons of these little tweaks, and you stack them up, aggregated marginal gains, you can be a very accomplished salesperson.
I love it. That's a big bit of sales history there. And I love how you've experienced and you've gone through those different nuances and seeing the changing. And sales is forever changing. And there's new waves of mindset, thoughts, and how we do it. And that's kind of when we were in London, it's great I would put myself as the younger sales trainer that's still new in the game, speaking to somebody and taking an interest and being curious as to how it's transformed. But then you can take elements of that. And then, same with you and me, we've been talking about content creation as sales trainers and coaches, sharing tips and advice. And then you can see your spin on it and then my spin on it. But before we do close, I kind of also want to give you a little bit of space so obviously you're on our podcast and you have your own podcast, which is Sales Today. Just for the audience out there, we'll be putting links into that and also the episode you and me did together as well. But if somebody's watching or listening to this thread and they're saying, okay, what is Sales Today? What would be the ideal audience for people to listen to those podcasts? And what's kind of the, what's the background with that podcast? What are you trying to achieve there, Fred?
Yeah, again, that's had a bit of an evolution as well from what it started out as, because it started out as, it's even changed its name. It was selling through partnering skills, and we kind of looked at the 6 elements of partnering skills, which there are the 6 things, and looked at how do people apply that into sales. Just give the book a bit of a bump, if I'm honest. Yeah. But as we're moving on, thinking we've kind of done that. It's more about how sales is evolving. So that's why it's called Sales Today. And so it's mainly an interview show. So it's getting people who've got an interesting angle on it. So we were talking about, using social media, content creation. People who've got something to bring to the party that we can sort of capture in 25, 30 minutes. So that, that's quite sad really, people don't have to go away and read the book. I do interview quite a lot of authors. We're all on promo tours and that. It's like, well, you just tell them all the good stuff in the book that people don't have to read it. But honestly, I don't care. From my personal point of view, if someone gets me on to tell you what's in the book, I want people to take the knowledge and to use the stuff. some ways the actual book sales themselves are secondary. So I'd prefer people to take the concepts and to do stuff to get better at selling. And that's what we're doing in the podcast. It's, oh, this person said something interesting. Oh, they might be a bit of fun. Let's get them on, interview, can capture the essence of what they're all about.
Thank you so much for sharing. And again, for our listeners and watchers, I'll be putting links in for the Sales Today podcast. I'll also put the links in with the books that you've got as well coming out, Fred. A ton of knowledge, a wealth of information from yourself. But it has been an absolute pleasure having you on board here today, Fred. And the question that I like to ask our guests is, okay, let's think about this. Let's go back to that 8-year-old Fred in that Victorian mill, wearing that outfit, speaking to those customers. If you could give your younger version 3 bits of advice, what would those 3 bits be, Fred?
Well, the 8-year-old, don't eat all those sweets at once.
Yeah.
On a similar note, it will be something like to the 18-year-old, don't try and drink that pint upside down.
Solid advice. Solid.
You could imagine what probably like that.
Yeah.
No, but then the serious piece will be a bit more aware of some of the opportunities that you might be offered. And the one that particularly comes to mind was when I was in my first full-time training job with a company called Structured Training. The MD there, Andrew Brown, he said to me, "Red, you should write a book." I was more bothered about reffing and doing rugby stuff at the time. So that kind of went over my head. I missed it.
Yeah.
If I'd have done that then, if I'd have picked up on that, knowing what it could have done, basically having him as the coach to have done it and positioned myself to, I'd be achieving what I'm trying to achieve now on a far bigger scale, I think. Because I'd have that platform, I'd understood how to use it, I'd be communicating stuff better. So that would probably be the thing that I would say is like, when you get offered that, don't poo-poo it and go, that sounds like hard work.
Yeah.
Go for it,
Yeah.
because that is going to serve you so much better later in life. So to translate that into other advice for anybody, it's just be aware of some of the things that might be coming your way and what it might mean. Just don't necessarily dismiss so quickly.
100%. I love that. And are there any shout outs or kudos that you'd like to give on today's show, Fred?
Oh, you, mate, for asking me. Seriously, thanks. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been good fun conversations. It's always good to catch up.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, let's leave it to that. Let's keep it about us too. Sales is all about being generous and helping others. Yeah, apart from its podcast, it's about us.
Love that. I love that. And as you can see, guys and girls, this is why I wanted to bring Fred on. It's been an absolute, really good conversation. Learned a hell of a lot more about you, sir, and definitely know that our audience will be getting value from this. So as a reminder to our listeners, watchers, and subscribers, if you're listening to this in your local podcast platform, please give us a rating. Share this episode with anybody that you think could benefit from it. If you're watching this on YouTube, what would really help the show get out there even further is by giving us a like, comment, and subscribe down below. And again, all of Fred's details and information on his books, etc., will be within the show notes. So reach out to the guy, say hello, or maybe send him a selfie with your own orange hat on. But Fred, been an absolute pleasure and privilege. Thank you very much for coming onto the show. And as I say to all my guests, sir, happy selling.